The Chicago sky seemed grey than usual on that muggy January afternoon. Wicker Park, with its colourful and bustling streets, was now immersed in a heavy atmosphere, as if the air itself was holding its breath before the storm. On the corner of Darman Avenue, a small café called Cornerstone Arts offered refuge against the melancholy of the big city. The smell of freshly baked cheese rolls mixed with the strong aroma of fresh coffee, creating a welcoming bubble for those who entered. Emily Parker occupied the most secluded table, almost hidden by a wall covered with hanging plants. Her graphite-stained fingers slid across the worn sketchbook she never abandoned. She was 28 years old with an appearance that didn't draw attention, brown hair tied in a messy bun, simple and comfortable clothes. Her green eyes, however, carried an intensity that contrasted with her unpretentious figure. In the small apartment she rented nearby, bills were piling up on the table. The rent was late for the second consecutive month, and the illustration commissions she did to survive were scarce. Her regular clients had disappeared with promises of payment that never materialized. Still, Emily continued drawing as if her life depended on it. In a way, it did. The café bustled around her. Students furiously typed on their laptops. Executives talked loudly on their phones. Couples shared slices of cake with complicit smiles. Emily observed everything, absorbing every detail, every expression, every gesture. Material for future drawings, she thought, as her coffee cup slowly cooled in front of her. The doorbell rang, announcing another customer. A cold wind swept through the environment when the door opened, making Emily press her thin jacket against her body. That's when she saw him. A tall man, approximately 35 years old, with dark hair slightly graying at the temples, holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 years old. The child had voluminous curls that framed a round, frightened face. "Too many people, Daddy." "Noisy," Emily heard the girl say as she covered her ears with her little hands. The man looked around, visibly distressed. The café was packed, with no empty tables in sight. For a second, his gaze met Emily's. There was something in those brown eyes, weariness, yes, but also an undeniable kindness that made her act on impulse. "There's space here if you'd like to sit," Emily said, indicating the 2 empty chairs in front of her. The man hesitated for just a moment before smiling gratefully. "Are you sure? We don't want to intrude." "No intrusion at all," she replied, moving her sketchbook aside. "Thank you so much. I'm Nathan. And this is my daughter Sophie." "Emily," she introduced herself simply. Nathan helped Sophie settle into the chair. The girl still seemed uncomfortable with the noise, her restless eyes examining the environment. "She doesn't like noisy places much," Nathan explained in a low voice, "but we needed to get out of the house today." Emily noticed the slight accent in his words. "You're not from here. We're from Denver. We moved to Chicago 3 months ago. We're still adjusting." The waitress approached, and Nathan ordered a coffee for himself and a hot chocolate for Sophie. Emily observed the girl, who was now biting her lip, looking curiously at the sketchbook. Without thinking too much, Emily opened her worn bag and took out a box of colored pencils, already well used with a broken lid. She tore a blank page from her notebook and offered it to the girl. "Would you like to draw a bit? Sometimes it helps when we're feeling overwhelmed." Sophie's eyes lit up, but she looked at her father, silently asking for permission. "You can take it, honey." "Thank you, miss." "Thank you," mumbled Sophie, taking the pencils carefully, as if they were fragile treasures. A comfortable silence settled between the three. Sophie began to draw with concentration, her tongue appearing at the corner of her mouth as a sign of effort. Nathan watched his daughter with a protective gaze, occasionally sipping his coffee. Emily returned to her own drawings, but something had changed. The lines she traced now seemed lighter, more hopeful. "Are you an artist?" Nathan asked, breaking the silence. Emily gave a short laugh without humor. "I try to be. I do illustrations on commission, drawings for small publications, that sort of thing." "And can you make a living from that in Chicago?" The question hit a sensitive spot. "Not always," she admitted. "Actually, almost never, but it's what I know how to do." Nathan nodded, understanding. There was something about him that inspired trust, as if Emily had known him for a long time. "And you?" she asked. "What do you do?" "I work with social projects," he answered vaguely. "Nothing very glamorous." Sophie raised her drawing, interrupting the conversation. "Look, Daddy, it's you, me, and the coffee lady." Emily leaned in to see. On the paper, 3 stick figures smiled, holding hands, surrounded by colorful butterflies. It was simple, childish, but strangely touching. "It's beautiful, Sophie," Emily praised, genuinely impressed with the vibrant color choices. "Can I give it to you?" asked the girl, surprising both Emily and Nathan. "For me? Are you sure?" Sophie nodded, pushing the drawing in her direction. "You gave me the pencils." Emily took the drawing carefully. "I'll treasure it." Nathan's eyes met hers over Sophie's head, conveying a silent gratitude that went beyond words. Time passed more quickly than Emily had expected. Soon the sky darkened completely, and the rain that had threatened to fall finally poured down on the city. Nathan looked at his watch. "We need to go. Sophie has school tomorrow." Emily felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. "Of course." Nathan paid the bill and helped Sophie put the pencils back in the box. "Thank you very much for the company and for the pencils." "It was nothing," replied Emily, storing Sophie's drawing in her notebook. "Bye, coffee lady," exclaimed Sophie, waving. Emily smiled. "Bye, Sophie. It was a pleasure meeting you both." When they left, braving the rain under a single umbrella, Emily remained seated, looking at the childish drawing. 3 people holding hands, surrounded by butterflies. A detail caught her attention. The coffee lady had small wings on her back, almost imperceptible. That night, returning to her cold and silent apartment, Emily didn't feel as alone as usual. She fixed Sophie's drawing on the wall above her work desk and, for the first time in weeks, took out her paints and began to paint something new, something that wasn't a commission. An open window, with butterflies coming in. What Emily didn't know was that this casual encounter would change the course of her life forever, and that Nathan Brooks was not just the caring father he appeared to be. If this story has interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. Let's continue. 3 days had passed since the encounter with Nathan and Sophie. Emily returned to Cornerstone Arts in the secret hope of seeing them again, but the corner table remained occupied by other anonymous faces. Life continued its relentless course. That morning, she had received another rent collection letter with words underlined in red and veiled threats of eviction. Her fingers trembled slightly as she drew, betraying the anxiety she tried to hide. "Another coffee?" asked Ryan, the barista, with an easy smile, who already knew Emily from her frequent visits. "I can't today," she replied, embarrassed. Her budget was stretched to the limit. Ryan leaned on the counter, bending down to speak more quietly. "Don't worry, someone already paid for you." Emily raised her eyebrows, confused. "What do you mean?" "A customer left credit for your coffees, for the next month, actually." He shrugged, as if this happened every day. "I'll be right back with your coffee." Intrigued, Emily looked around as if she could identify her anonymous benefactor among the customers. Who would do such a thing? She immediately thought of Nathan, but dismissed the idea. They had met only once by chance. It didn't make sense. When Ryan returned with the coffee, he also brought a small wooden pencil holder. "I think you forgot this here the other day." Emily frowned. "It's not mine." "Are you sure?" "It had your name on it." She took the object, examining it. It was a handcrafted pencil holder made of polished dark wood with carved foliage details. Upon opening it, she found a note, carefully folded. "Keep drawing. The world needs to see." Signed only with an N. Emily's heart raced. N for Nathan, or was it a coincidence? The note offered no more clues, just those enigmatic words that somehow seemed to respond exactly to what she needed to hear at that moment. "Who left this?" she asked Ryan. The barista scratched his head. "I can't say. I found it in the lost and found box this morning with your name." Emily kept the note in her bag, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Someone was watching her. Someone was paying attention to her art. The feeling was both comforting and unsettling. In the days that followed, Emily returned to the café more frequently. Something had changed in her routine, in her way of seeing the world. She began to leave small drawings on the tables, colorful butterflies, half-open windows, hands that reached out. She didn't sign them, didn't charge for them. It was her way of giving back the anonymous gesture, of passing on that spark of hope that someone had ignited in her. Ryan began to collect the drawings, fixing them on a wall near the counter. "People love them," he commented one afternoon. "Some even come here specifically to see if they can find a new one." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that she hadn't experienced in a long time. It wasn't fame or recognition. It was something simpler, and at the same time, deeper. Connection. Her small works were now part of other people's lives, creating invisible bridges. At home, the bills continued to pile up, but Emily found the strength to go on. She had secured a small job illustrating pamphlets for a local bookstore, which eased the financial pressure a bit. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. It was on a rainy Thursday that everything changed. Emily was returning from the market, carrying a light bag, just the essentials to survive a few more days. When she opened the mailbox on the ground floor of the building, she found a different envelope among the usual bills. It was thick, made of textured ivory paper, her name written in elegant calligraphy. Inside the apartment, she left the bag on the table and examined the envelope with curiosity. There was no return address. Upon opening it, she found a formal invitation to an exhibition at Lumina Gallery, one of the most prestigious art spaces in Chicago. Emily knew the place only by name. She had never set foot there, considering it out of her league. "Dear Emily Parker," the invitation said, "we are pleased to invite you to a special event at our gallery next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Your presence is essential." There were no further explanations, just an address in Lincoln Park and the signature of the curator, Heather Williams. Emily turned the envelope over, looking for additional clues, but there were none. Why would Lumina Gallery invite her to anything? It must be a mistake, someone with the same name. For 2 days, Emily hesitated. She even called the gallery, but the receptionist only confirmed that there was an event on the mentioned date and that her name was on the special guest list. When she asked for more details, the woman simply said it was a surprise. "Should I go?" she asked Jessica, her only close friend in Chicago, during a video call. "Of course you should. What do you have to lose?" replied Jessica enthusiastically. "Besides, when was the last time you left the house for something other than work or that cafe?" Emily had no answer for that. Her social life had been reduced to a minimum in recent months, consumed by the struggle for survival. On Tuesday, she wore the only presentable dress she owned, a simple navy blue model that she had bought on sale. She tied her hair in a neater bun than usual and, after much hesitation, took a bus toward Lincoln Park. Lumina Gallery occupied an old imposing building with a stone facade and large glass doors. Emily felt immediately out of place among elegant people arriving in luxury cars. For a moment, she thought about going back home, but something pushed her to move forward. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was the same intuition that had made her offer a place at her table to Nathan and Sophie. At the reception, a middle-aged woman consulted a list. "Emily Parker. We've been waiting for you. Please follow me." Instead of leading her to the main hall where most of the guests were heading, the receptionist led Emily down a side corridor to a smaller room, separated from the rest of the exhibition. The door had only a number, 7. "Please enter. Heather is waiting for you." With her heart racing, Emily pushed the door. The room was spacious, with soft lighting and white walls, and on those walls, elegantly framed, were her drawings. Dozens of them. The same ones she had left at the cafe, others from her personal notebook, some she didn't even remember creating, all there displayed as valuable works. In the center of the room, an elegant woman was talking with a small group. Upon seeing Emily, she smiled and came in her direction. "Emily Parker, we finally meet. I'm Heather Williams, curator of the gallery." Emily could barely respond, still in shock at what she saw around her. How did my drawings end up here?" Heather smiled again. "We have a patron very interested in your work. He approached us a few weeks ago with an unusual proposal. A surprise exhibition focused on anonymous talents in the city. Your work was the first he showed us." "What patron? Who would do this?" Heather looked beyond Emily toward the door. "I believe he himself can answer that question." Emily turned, and her heart almost stopped. There, standing at the entrance to the room, was Nathan. Not the Nathan she had met at the cafe, dressed simply, appearing tired. This Nathan wore a well-cut suit, had perfectly styled hair, and displayed a confidence that completely transformed his presence. At his side, Sophie smiled shyly, in a flowery dress with her hair held back by a red headband. "Hello, Emily," he said, approaching. "I think I owe you some explanations." Emily felt the floor sway beneath her feet. Nathan Brooks, the man from the cafe, the dedicated father with a Denver accent, stood before her completely transformed. The expression on his face was gentle, but his eyes revealed an intensity she hadn't noticed before. "I don't understand," stammered Emily, looking from the drawings to Nathan. "How did you get these drawings? Why would you do this?" Nathan approached with slow steps, as if afraid of frightening her. "Let's talk calmly. You deserve explanations." Heather Williams discreetly moved away, taking the other guests to another part of the exhibition. In seconds, only Emily, Nathan, and Sophie remained in the room. The girl ran to Emily and hugged her legs. "You came! Daddy said you would come." Emily automatically crouched down, hugging Sophie, while trying to process what was happening. "Of course I came, little one, but I'm a bit confused." Nathan indicated a bench in the center of the room. "Can we sit?" Emily nodded, still dazed. Sophie sat between them, swinging her little legs in the air, apparently oblivious to the tension of the moment. "My full name is Nathan Brooks Carver," he began. "I'm the founder and director of the New Perspectives Institute." The name struck a chord with Emily. The New Perspectives Institute was known in artistic circles as an organization that funded emerging artists, especially those without access to traditional art circuits. "I'm always looking for genuine talents, people who create not for recognition or money, but because they simply need to express something," Nathan continued. "When you offered a place at our table that day, it was a simple gesture but revealing. And then when you gave your pencils to Sophie—" "It was just a drawing," interrupted Emily, uncomfortable with the weight he seemed to attribute to something so small. "It wasn't just a drawing," Nathan smiled. "It was kindness without expecting anything in return, something rare these days." Sophie pulled her father's sleeve. "Can I show her?" Nathan nodded, and the girl took a notebook from the small bag she carried. When she opened it, Emily saw dozens of colorful drawings, all signed by Sophie, but with a style clearly inspired by her own creations. "After that day, she hasn't stopped drawing," explained Nathan. "Your drawings awakened something in her. Sophie has auditory sensitivity. Loud noises bother her a lot. Art has been a form of expression and refuge." Emily flipped through the notebook, moved. "They're beautiful, Sophie." "I learned from you," replied the girl with simplicity. Nathan resumed his explanation. "I went back to the cafe the next day to thank you, but you weren't there. Ryan, the barista, recognized me and mentioned that you frequented the place regularly. He told me about your financial difficulties, about how you sometimes spent hours with a single coffee." Emily blushed, embarrassed to have her situation exposed like that. "Don't be embarrassed," Nathan hastened to say. "We all face difficult moments. What's important is how we react to them, and you reacted by creating beauty. So it was you who left the credit for the coffees." "Yes, and when I returned again and saw the drawings you started leaving on the tables, I realized I had found exactly the type of artist the Institute is looking for." Emily stood up abruptly, walking toward one of the frames on the wall. It was one of her cafe drawings, a half-open window with fluttering curtains, butterflies entering, bringing colors to a gray room. "How did you get these drawings?" "Ryan kept many of them. Others I asked permission from customers who had taken them home. Some are from your notebook, which you left at the cafe one afternoon while you went to the bathroom." Emily turned indignant. "You looked through my notebook?" Nathan had the decency to look embarrassed. "I just flipped through it quickly and photographed some pages. I know it was invasive, I apologize, but I needed to be sure before taking the next step." "What next step?" "This exhibition. The beginning of a possible sponsorship from the Institute." "Emily, your work has a purity that we rarely see. You draw from the heart, not to please critics or follow trends." Emily sat down again, trying to absorb everything. Part of her wanted to be furious with Nathan for invading her privacy, for manipulating the circumstances. Another part was amazed at the opportunity that was arising before her. "Why didn't you tell me from the beginning? Why all this theater?" Nathan sighed. "Experience. When artists know they're being evaluated, they change. They start creating thinking about what they think we want to see, Not what they really need to express. He paused. Besides, I wasn't sure if you would accept help. Proud people often refuse extended hands. Emily couldn't deny it. She probably would have refused any direct offer of help. And the note, "Keep drawing. The world needs to see." Was that you? Yes. I wanted to encourage you to continue, without revealing my identity yet. Sophie, who had remained quiet, pulled Emily's hand. Are you mad at us? The question, so direct and innocent, broke the tension. Emily smiled, running her hand through the girl's curls. No, Sophie, I'm not mad, just surprised. So will you be our artist friend? Daddy said you could teach people to draw like you. Emily looked at Nathan, confused. Teach? The Institute doesn't just fund artists, he explained. It also promotes workshops in underprivileged communities, public schools, hospitals. We believe art can transform lives, especially for children and young people who have little access to it. The idea touched Emily deeply. Teaching, sharing her passion, using art as a tool for transformation. It was something she had never seriously considered, but that now seemed so obvious, so right. Before she could respond, the door to the room opened again and Heather returned, accompanied by journalists and photographers. Emily, the guests are eager to meet the artist of the evening, announced Heather. Are you ready for the interviews? The reality of the situation finally hit Emily in all its dimension. This wasn't just a private exhibition, it was an official event, with press, with important people from the art world, people who were there to see her work, to meet her. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered to Nathan, feeling panic rise in her throat. I'm not dressed properly. I haven't prepared anything to say. Nathan put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Be yourself, Emily. That's why we chose your work. For its authenticity. Sophie held her hand. I'll stay with you, Aunt Emily. The girl's gesture gave her courage. Emily took a deep breath, smoothed her simple dress and moved forward, with Sophie at her side and Nathan right behind. Upon entering the main hall, she was greeted with applause. Dozens of faces stared at her with curiosity and admiration. A journalist approached, microphone in hand. Emily Parker, how does it feel being discovered by the prestigious New Perspectives Institute? They say you're the new sensation of Chicago's urban art scene. The words sounded strange, almost absurd. Yesterday she was just an illustrator struggling to pay rent, leaving anonymous drawings in a café. Today, apparently, she was a sensation. Emily looked at Nathan, who nodded encouragingly. Then, with a calmness she didn't know she possessed, she replied, I'm still trying to understand what it means to be here. What I can say is that I draw because I need to, because it's how I process the world. If that connects with people, I'm happy. More questions came. Flashes went off. Emily answered as best she could, feeling like an imposter about to be unmasked at any moment. When she finally got a moment to breathe, she found herself facing an elegant woman with a serious expression, who observed her with analytical eyes. Barbara Mitchell, the woman introduced herself, art critic for Panorama magazine. The name made Emily shudder. Barbara Mitchell was known for her merciless critiques and for unmasking what she called false talents. Nice to meet you, replied Emily, tense. I know your work, said Barbara, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Or at least I thought I did. Curious choice by Nathan Brooks, I must say. From invisible artist to gallery star, all it took was the right place and the right table, wasn't it? The words had a subtle poison, insinuating that Emily had somehow manipulated the situation, used Nathan to get the exhibition. It wasn't like that, Emily began. But Barbara was already walking away, leaving that malicious insinuation in the air. The evening continued, with Emily alternating between moments of genuine joy seeing people moved by her drawings and moments of insecurity, imagining how many there thought like Barbara Mitchell. When finally the last guests left and only the gallery staff remained, Emily found Nathan observing one of her drawings, the one of the window with butterflies. So, he asked, what did you think of your first exhibition? Emily chose her words carefully. It was intense. Thank you for the opportunity, Nathan, really. But I can't help wondering if I deserve this. What do you mean? That critic, Barbara Mitchell, she insinuated that I'm only here because we met by chance. And she's not entirely wrong, is she? There are hundreds of talented artists in Chicago who will never have this chance. Nathan observed her for a moment, his face serious. Life is made of encounters, Emily. Some are just passing, others change our course. It wasn't luck that brought you here. It was your choice to extend a hand when you saw a frightened child. It was your art, genuine and honest. It was you. Emily wanted to believe that. She really wanted to. But as she looked at her drawings on the walls of the most important gallery in the city, she couldn't silence the voice that whispered in her mind, "You don't belong in this world." The days following the exhibition were a whirlwind. Emily's phone, previously silent, now rang constantly. Heather Williams wanted to discuss a larger solo exhibition. Journalists from art magazines requested interviews. The New Perspectives Institute had sent a sponsorship contract that would guarantee her financial stability for the next 12 months. It was everything Emily had always dreamed of, but never believed possible. Still, she couldn't completely surrender to joy. Barbara Mitchell's words had planted a seed of doubt that grew each day. In her small apartment, now with the rent paid up, Emily sat at her work desk and opened her laptop. She had avoided social media since the exhibition, but curiosity finally won. She typed her name in the search engine and was flooded with results. Emily Parker, Nathan Brooks's new discovery in Chance Critics. From anonymity to stardom, meet the artist who left drawings in cafes. Among the complimentary articles, however, she found acidic comments in forums and specialized blogs. Barbara Mitchell's critique in Panorama magazine was especially cruel. In an era of manufactured art and instant talents, Emily Parker represents the perfect example of how personal connections still determine who receives the spotlight. Her drawings, although technically competent, lack the depth and originality that would justify such attention. The question that won't go away: is she just another piece in Nathan Brooks' chess game, known for his convenient discoveries? Emily closed the laptop forcefully, feeling her stomach turn. She was being accused of manipulating her situation, of using Nathan to gain notoriety. Ironically, it was exactly the opposite. He had orchestrated everything. Her phone rang. It was Jessica. "Did you see what they're saying? It's absurd. As if you had planned to meet the guy." Emily sighed. "I'm starting to think it was a mistake to accept all this." "Don't be ridiculous," Jessica reprimanded. "How many times did you cry in this apartment because you couldn't pay the rent? How many times did you have to choose between eating or buying material to draw? You deserve this, Emily." "But what if they're right? What if my work isn't good enough to be in that gallery? Look, envy exists in any area. You think you're only there because you met Nathan. He wouldn't exhibit your work if he didn't believe in it, regardless of how you met." Jessica's words made sense, but they couldn't reach the core of Emily's insecurity. It wasn't just about deserving or not. It was about identity. Who was Emily Parker now? The promising artist of the New Perspectives Institute? Or the same anonymous illustrator as always, just with a stroke of luck? The next morning she gathered courage and called Nathan. They hadn't talked since the night of the exhibition. "Emily, I was just thinking about you," he answered, his voice warm. "How are you feeling after everything?" "Confused," she admitted. "Nathan, have you read what they're saying about me? About us?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I've read some comments, yes. Especially Barbara Mitchell's critique. They're insinuating that there's something between us, that you chose me for personal reasons. And that bothers you?" The question caught Emily by surprise. "Of course it does. I don't want people to think I am where I am because you have connections, because you know the right people." Nathan's voice hardened slightly. "Emily, the art world is like that. It always has been. Talent is fundamental, but not sufficient. Every artist you admire got where they are because someone opened a door. But it's different. They deserved those doors. And you don't?" Emily had no answer. Part of her believed she didn't, that there were much more talented artists who would never have the chance she was having. "Look," Nathan continued, softening his tone, "I understand your concern, but don't let those voices overshadow what you've achieved. Remember why you started drawing in the first place." After hanging up, Emily remained seated, staring into space. Why had she started drawing? Not for exhibitions or recognition. She drew because she needed to, because it was the only thing that made the world make sense when everything else was falling apart. Determined to clear her mind, she grabbed her bag and went out. Her feet automatically took her to Cornerstone Arts. The cafe was quiet at that time of the afternoon, with only a few scattered customers. Ryan waved from the counter, his smile broader than normal. "The celebrity returns," he joked. "Your usual coffee?" Emily nodded, looking for her favorite table at the back. To her surprise, the wall where Ryan used to display her drawings now exhibited a framed newspaper clipping, the article about her exhibition, with a photo of her next to Nathan and Sophie. "People ask about you," Ryan commented, bringing the coffee. "They want to know if the famous artist still frequents the cafe where it all began." "I'm not famous," protested Emily, embarrassed. "Well, someone thinks you are. We've received 3 calls from people wanting to buy any drawing of yours we might still have." Emily almost choked on her coffee. "What? Why?" "Investment, I guess. You know how it is. Drawings from the early phase are worth a lot when the artist breaks through." Ryan shrugged. "I told them we didn't have any more. The few that remained are on that wall, and they're not for sale." This was surreal. People wanted to buy her drawings as an investment? The same drawings she distributed for free weeks ago? The idea was so absurd it almost made her want to laugh. Emily spent the afternoon at the cafe, trying to draw as before, but something had changed. Each stroke now came loaded with self-consciousness. "Is it good enough for Nathan Brooks's protégé?" a voice asked in her mind. "Will it justify all this fuss?" When the sky darkened and the rain began to fall, Emily realized she had spent hours there, with only a few hesitant lines on the paper. Frustrated, she put away her materials. That's when she noticed a woman sitting alone on the other side of the cafe, observing her fixedly. The woman appeared to be about 50, with grey hair cut in an elegant bob, simple but quality clothes. There was something familiar about her face. When she noticed Emily's gaze, she stood up and approached. "Miss Parker, forgive me for staring. I'm Eleanor Vincent." The name meant nothing to Emily, who just nodded politely. "I was Nathan Brooks' professor in art school many years ago," the woman continued. "I saw the article about your exhibition and was curious." "You know Nathan?" asked Emily, suddenly interested. "I know him, and I know his pattern too." There was a warning tone in her voice. "Nathan always had a good eye for talent, but also for opportunities. He built his reputation by discovering artists like you, young, authentic, with moving stories behind them." Emily felt her blood freeze. "What are you insinuating?" "Nothing that isn't true. Nathan is a brilliant businessman. His institute depends on discoveries that generate emotion, that tell a good story. An anonymous artist leaving drawings in cafes, struggling to survive? It's perfect for his discourse." The words hit Emily like slaps. "I don't think I understand." Eleanor softened her expression. "I'm not saying your work has no merit. It probably does. But Nathan is not moved just by artistic admiration. There's always a calculation. Why are you telling me this? Because I've seen others go through the same cycle. Nathan discovers them, promotes them, uses their story to strengthen the Institute's image, and then moves on to the next discovery. I just thought you should know where you're stepping." After Eleanor left, Emily remained paralyzed in her chair. Her mind was buzzing. Could it be possible? Was Nathan using her just as an inspirational story for his institute? Was all that interest in her work calculated, part of a marketing strategy? The rain increased outside, turning into a storm. Emily looked out the window, seeing people running to take shelter. A feeling of claustrophobia overwhelmed her. She needed to get out of there. She paid quickly and went out into the street, not caring about the rain that soaked her. She walked without direction, letting the water wash away her tears of confusion and anger. She felt used, manipulated. Everything she believed she had achieved now seemed contaminated by doubt. Her steps took her back to Lincoln Park, in front of Lumina Gallery. The lights were on, indicating some event happening inside. Through the glass doors, Emily glimpsed elegant silhouettes, champagne flutes, laughter. A world that for a brief moment had been hers too, or so she had thought. Wet and desperate, she returned to the only place where she knew she was still just Emily. The small apartment with paid bills, but full of uncertainties. Upon opening the door, she was greeted by silence, and the sight of Sophie's drawing still hanging on the wall, 3 stick figures holding hands surrounded by butterflies. The innocence of that image hit her hard. Sophie had no hidden motives, no agendas. She had drawn from the heart, just as Emily always drew. Could it be possible that Nathan, despite everything Eleanor had said, had also acted with some sincerity? Emily picked up the phone, her fingers trembling over Nathan's contact. She needed to confront him, to hear from him directly. But before she could call, a notification appeared on the screen. A message from an unknown number with an attachment. Upon opening it, she saw a recent photo, her and Nathan talking in the gallery during the exhibition. The message simply said, "Recently discovered? People need to know the truth about you and Nathan Brooks." Panic set in. Someone was insinuating that there was something premeditated, perhaps even a relationship between them. Who would send this? Barbara Mitchell? Eleanor Vincent? Some other envious artist? As she tried to process what this meant, the phone rang in her hands. It was Nathan. Emily answered, her voice trembling. "Hello? Emily, where are you? We need to talk." "Why? Did something happen?" "I just received an anonymous message, a photo of us with an insinuation. I think someone is trying to create a scandal." So he had received it too. It wasn't her paranoia. "I received one too," admitted Emily. "Nathan, I don't know if I can continue with this. All this exposure, the criticism, the rumors. It's not what I wanted when I started drawing." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I understand," Nathan finally said. "Maybe it was a mistake to expose you to all this so quickly. But Emily, don't let these people destroy what you've built. Your art matters." After hanging up, Emily sat on the floor of the apartment, hugging her knees. What should she do now? Continue, facing rumors and criticism, or retreat to comfortable anonymity, even if it meant giving up financial security and the opportunities the Institute offered? The rain continued to fall outside, creating dancing shadows on the walls. Emily closed her eyes, exhausted. That's when she heard soft knocks on the door. If this story has interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. Let's continue. Emily wiped away her tears and hesitantly got up. She wasn't expecting visitors, especially at this hour and in this storm. For a moment, she feared it might be a journalist, someone who had discovered her address. The knock sounded again, more insistent. "Who is it?" she asked, approaching the door without opening it. "It's me, Nathan. I'm with Sophie." Emily froze. What was he doing here? She took a deep breath and opened the door. Nathan was soaked, raindrops streaming down his worried face. Beside him, Sophie held a small, colorful backpack against her chest, protected by a hooded raincoat. "Sorry to show up like this," said Nathan. "I tried calling again, but you didn't answer." "I was worried." Emily looked at the phone, now silent on the table. She hadn't even noticed there were more calls. "Come in," she finally said, stepping aside to let them pass. "You're soaked." Sophie ran inside, her curious eyes examining the small apartment. Nathan entered more slowly, clearly uncomfortable about invading Emily's personal space. "Can I get towels for you?" offered Emily, trying to regain some composure. "Don't worry about me," replied Nathan. "But Sophie might need one." While Emily fetched towels from the bathroom, she heard Sophie exclaim, "Daddy, look, my drawing!" Returning to the living room, she found the girl excitedly pointing to the drawing hanging on the wall, the 3 stick figures surrounded by butterflies. "You kept it," Nathan commented, looking at Emily with an expression she couldn't decipher. "Of course I kept it," replied Emily, handing the towel to Sophie and helping her dry her hair. "It was the first gift I received in a long time." Sophie smiled, proud. "I made more drawings for you, Aunt Emily." She opened her backpack and took out a set of colorful sheets, carefully protected in a plastic folder. "Daddy said you were sad. Drawings make people happy." Emily took the folder with trembling hands, feeling a lump in her throat. She opened it and found dozens of drawings, all signed by Sophie, all with the same theme: Emily, Nathan, and Sophie together in different settings. At the park, at the beach, at the café, in a big house with a garden. In all of them, the figure representing Emily had small wings on her back. "Why do I have wings in your drawings, Sophie?" asked Emily, moved. "Because you're like an angel," replied the girl with the disconcerting simplicity of children. "Angels help people. You helped me when I was afraid of the noise, and now you help other people with your drawings." Emily looked at Nathan, who was watching his daughter with visible emotion. "It was her idea to come here," he explained. "When I told her you were upset about what people were saying, she insisted we needed to help you like you helped us." Emily sat on the sofa, trying to process what was happening. Sophie's presence, with her innocence and honesty, created a stark contrast with the world of rumors and mistrust Emily had plunged into in the last few hours. "I brought coffee," said Nathan, taking a package from the small backpack he carried. "I thought we could talk calmly, if you want to, of course." Emily nodded, unable to refuse. While Nathan prepared the coffee in the small kitchenette, Sophie sat next to Emily on the sofa and began to flip through one of the sketchbooks left on the coffee table. "Your drawings are pretty," commented the girl. "Will you teach me to draw like that?" "Of course I'll teach you," Emily replied automatically, "if your father allows it." "He'll let me. Daddy always says art is important." Nathan returned with 2 steaming cups and a glass of milk for Sophie. He sat in the armchair across from the sofa, keeping a respectful distance. "Emily, we need to talk about what's happening," he began. "About these messages, these rumors." "I don't know if there's much to talk about," replied Emily, holding the cup with both hands to hide the tremor. "Of course people will speculate. You, a renowned curator, discovering an unknown artist. There must always be stories behind it, right?" Nathan frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" "I met your former professor today, Eleanor Vincent." Nathan's expression hardened. "Eleanor sought you out. What did she say?" "Enough to make me question everything. She mentioned that you have a pattern, Nathan. Discovering artists with moving stories, using them to promote the institute, and then moving on to the next one." Nathan put his cup on the table with too much force, making a noise that startled Sophie. Realizing the effect, he took a deep breath and softened his voice. "Sophie, honey, does Aunt Emily have coloring materials? Can you draw a bit while we talk?" Emily got a new notebook and colored pencils, giving them to Sophie, who settled on the rug, oblivious to the tension between the adults. When the girl was entertained, Nathan turned to Emily. "Eleanor Vincent and I have a complicated history," he began. "She was my advisor in college, and for a long time was my mentor. We profoundly diverged when I decided to create the institute. She believed, still believes, that art is only for an intellectual elite. For her, democratizing art is diluting its value." Emily listened attentively, trying to find signs of deception in his words. She found none. "About this supposed pattern," Nathan continued, "yes, the Institute supports artists who have a story beyond technique. Not for marketing, but because we believe authentic art is born from lived experience, not just from mastery of skills." "And afterward? What happens to these artists after you discover them?" "Some stay with us for years. Others choose different paths. We don't control their careers, Emily. We offer a beginning, a platform. The rest depends on them, on you." Emily wanted to believe. Part of her already believed, but there was still fear, insecurity. "And these anonymous messages? Who would be interested in creating rumors about us?" Nathan sighed. "I have my suspicions. The art world is smaller than it seems, and there are people who don't like what the Institute represents." "Barbara Mitchell?" "Possibly. She has connections with traditional galleries that have lost artists to us, or it could be someone jealous of your sudden success." Emily gave a bitter laugh. "Success? I'm being accused of being a fraud, of using personal connections to get where I am." "And is that true?" Nathan asked directly. "Of course not." "Then why do you care?" "Emily, people will always try to diminish achievements they don't understand or that threaten them. The question is, will you allow them to define who you are as an artist?" The words hit Emily deeply. Indeed, why did she care so much about what they thought? She knew the truth. She knew that her encounter with Nathan had been genuine, not calculated. She knew she had been drawing since childhood, long before dreaming of galleries or recognition. At that moment, Sophie approached, holding a new drawing. "I finished, Aunt Emily. It's for you." The drawing showed a woman with long hair in front of an easel, surrounded by smiling people. In the margin, small multicolored butterflies. Below, in awkward childish handwriting, it read, Aunt Emily teaches people to make butterflies. Emily felt the tears return, but different this time. They weren't tears of confusion or fear, but of clarity. The simplicity of Sophie's drawing had touched something deep inside her, a purpose that went beyond exhibitions or critiques. "Thank you, Sophie," she said, hugging the girl. "It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever received." Sophie smiled, proud, and returned to the rug to create more. Emily looked at Nathan, who was observing the scene with a serene smile. "I think your daughter just gave me the answer I needed," said Emily. "And what would that be?" "That what's important isn't recognition or even being exhibited in major galleries. It's what art can do, how it can connect people, inspire, teach." Nathan nodded, visibly relieved. "That's exactly what I saw in your drawings at the café, Emily. Not just technical talent, but purpose. Your drawings made people stop, think, feel." Emily looked out the window. The rain had diminished to a light drizzle, and some stars were beginning to appear between the dissipating clouds. Inside her, the storm was also calming. "What are we going to do about these rumors?" she finally asked. "Ignoring them would be my suggestion, but there's an alternative." Nathan hesitated. "The Institute is organizing a project in public schools in underserved areas, art workshops for children and teenagers. I was thinking of inviting you to lead some of them." "Me? Teaching? Why not? You have talent, and most importantly, you can connect with people. That's much more valuable than any technique we can teach." The idea resonated within Emily, teaching what she knew, sharing her passion, especially with children who had little access to art. It was a way to give purpose to her ability, as well as an eloquent response to malicious insinuations. The artist discovered by Nathan Brooks becoming the artist who teaches children to express themselves. "I would like that," she finally responded. "Very much." Nathan smiled, relieved. "Great. We can start next week if you're ready." "And the exhibition? The contract with the Institute?" "Everything remains as we agreed, if you want. But this would be something additional, something of your own." Emily looked at Sophie, still concentrating on her colorful drawings. She remembered herself as a child, discovering the power of art to express what words couldn't. How different would her life have been if she had had someone to encourage her, to show possible paths. "When do we start?" she asked, feeling a new energy course through her body. That night, after Nathan and Sophie left with the promise to meet the next day to discuss the project details, Emily returned to her work desk. She looked at Sophie's drawing on the wall, at the new ones the girl had left, and felt something awaken inside her. She took a blank paper, larger than usual, and began to draw. She didn't think about critics, galleries, rumors. She drew as she did when she was a child, out of pure necessity for expression. Hours later, when the first ray of sunlight in the morning came through the window, Emily contemplated her completed work. It was a large mural, filled with diverse figures, children of all colors, adults, elderly, all connected by invisible threads that converged to a luminous center. From the center, butterflies came out in all directions, bringing light to every corner of the composition. It wasn't just a drawing. It was a manifesto, a declaration of what she believed art could do. It was her response to Barbara Mitchell, to Eleanor Vincent, to all who doubted. More than that, it was her response to herself, to the doubts she had harbored. Emily smiled, exhausted but invigorated. She had found her way back. 3 weeks had passed since the night of the storm. Autumn was slowly settling in Chicago, softening the oppressive heat and bringing afternoons of clear sky and gentle winds. At Montero Lobato Elementary School, located in the eastern outskirts, the courtyard was filled with improvised tables, each occupied by children concentrating on sheets of paper. "It doesn't need to be perfect," Emily explained, circulating among the tables. "The important thing is to put on paper what you feel." A girl of approximately 10 years raised her drawing. "Like this, teacher?" Emily smiled upon seeing the work, a simple house with a tree beside it and a united family in the garden. "It's beautiful, Madison. Do you want to tell its story?" The girl began to explain her drawing shyly, gaining confidence as she spoke. Around her, other children listened, waiting their turn to share. At the back of the courtyard, Nathan watched the scene with Sophie at his side, both smiling. The art workshops in public schools had been an immediate success. Emily had discovered a vocation she didn't know she possessed, the ability to connect with children through art, to make them believe in their creative potential. The project, initially scheduled for a few weeks, had already been extended and expanded to more schools. "You're an inspiration to them," commented the school principal, approaching Emily as the children had their snack. Many had never even held a colored pencil before. Emily felt her chest warm. It was hard to believe that a month ago she was desperate with overdue bills, drawing alone in a cafe. Now her mornings were dedicated to workshops in schools and her afternoons to preparing for the solo exhibition that would take place at Lumina Gallery in 2 weeks. The rumors about her and Nathan had diminished after a joint interview they gave to a respected art magazine, explaining how they met and the work they were doing in schools. Barbara Mitchell remained critical, but her voice was now just one among many that spoke about Emily's work, and most with approval. "Time to wrap up for today," announced Emily, checking her watch. "Tomorrow, we continue our collective story." The children protested, but began to put away the materials. One by one, they came to say goodbye, many with spontaneous hugs that warmed Emily's heart. When the last child left, Nathan and Sophie approached. "You have a natural gift for this," Nathan commented. "I've never seen the children so engaged." Emily blushed slightly at the compliment. In the last few weeks, she and Nathan had developed a professional partnership that was slowly transforming into friendship. He respected her space, never pushing beyond what was necessary, always consulting her opinions about the project. "Can I help tomorrow, Aunt Emily?" asked Sophie, who had become an unofficial assistant in the workshops, often showing her own drawing techniques to the younger children. "Of course you can, assistant," replied Emily, playfully messing up the girls' curls. "Your butterfly drawings were a hit last week." Sophie smiled, proud, and ran to play on the swing in the courtyard while the adults talked. "How's the preparation for the exhibition going?" asked Nathan. Emily sighed. "Moving forward. I'm still nervous, but in a different way this time." "Different how?" "Before I feared I wasn't good enough, didn't deserve to be there. Now—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Now I want my work to be meaningful, not just to critics, but to real people." Nathan nodded, understanding. "Is that why you chose the theme, connections?" "Yes. I want to show how we're all interconnected, how small gestures can change entire lives." Emily didn't mention that many of the work subtly portrayed the moment when she, Nathan, and Sophie first met at the cafe. That simple instant had triggered a series of events that transformed her life and the lives of dozens of children who now had access to art. "By the way," said Nathan, taking an envelope from his pocket, "I received this morning. I thought you'd like to see it." Emily opened the envelope and found an official letter from the City Department of Education approving the expansion of the project to 10 more schools in the next semester, with funding guaranteed by the New Perspectives Institute. "Nathan, this is amazing," she exclaimed, her eyes shining. "We'll be able to reach so many children." "It was your work that impressed the department," he replied. "The teachers' reports on the impact of the workshops on the students' concentration and emotional expression were decisive." Emily felt a wave of gratitude. For the first time in years, her artistic work had a purpose greater than mere survival. She was creating, yes, but she was also transforming lives, opening doors for children who, like herself in childhood, needed art as refuge and expression. On the night of the inauguration of the Connections exhibition, Lumina Gallery was unrecognizable. Heather Williams had transformed the austere space into something welcoming and interactive. Instead of the traditional arrangement, with works perfectly aligned on white walls, Emily's drawings and paintings were organized in thematic nuclei, creating small environments that invited visitors to enter and explore. In the center of the gallery, a large installation. Colorful threads linked dozens of small drawings made by the children from the workshops, all connected to a larger canvas created by Emily, the butterfly mural she had drawn on the night after Nathan and Sophie's visit. The opening was scheduled for 7 p.m., but by 6:30 p.m. there was already a considerable line at the door. Emily, dressed in an elegant emerald green dress, a gift from Jessica, who had insisted she needed something special for the occasion, observed everything from a discreet corner, still in disbelief. "Nervous?" asked Heather, approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. Emily accepted the drink, grateful. A little. It's different this time. Because you're in control, this exhibition is yours, from concept to execution. It was true. Emily had participated in every decision, from the selection of works to their arrangement in the space. Heather had been a patient mentor, guiding without imposing, suggesting without insisting. "I wish my parents could see this," commented Emily, more to herself than to Heather. "They would be proud," replied the curator, gently squeezing her arm before moving away to receive the first guests. As the gallery filled, Emily circulated among the groups, answering questions, explaining concepts, thanking compliments. She saw familiar faces: Ryan, the barista, who had closed the cafe early to attend; Jessica, accompanied by her boyfriend; teachers and principals from the schools where she conducted the workshops. Barbara Mitchell was also there, analyzing each work with a critical expression. When their gazes crossed, the critic merely nodded slightly. It wasn't enthusiastic approval, but neither was it the previous hostility. Emily returned the gesture and moved on. She had learned that she couldn't and didn't need to please everyone. Nathan arrived at 7:30 p.m., elegant in a navy blue suit, holding Sophie's hand, who looked like a princess in her white dress with puffy sleeves. The girl carried the old colored pencil case that Emily had given her at the cafe months ago. "Sorry for the delay," said Nathan, approaching. "Impossible traffic today." "You arrived at the perfect time," replied Emily, bending down to hug Sophie. "What did you think of the exhibition, little one?" "There are lots of butterflies," replied the girl, looking around in wonder. "Can I see everything?" "Of course you can. In fact—" Emily hesitated, looking at Nathan. "I have a surprise for you both." She led them to a separate room at the back of the gallery. There, isolated from the other works, was a single large canvas, covered by a velvet cloth. "This is my thanks for everything you've done for me," said Emily, her voice slightly trembling. "I wouldn't have gotten here without you." With a smooth movement, she removed the cloth, revealing the painting. It was a reinterpretation of the cafe scene, Emily, Nathan, and Sophie sitting at the table, with the busy cafe in the background. But Emily had added magical elements. Spirals of steam rose from the coffee cup and transformed into butterflies and birds. Sophie's drawings came to life and flew around, and each of the 3 figures had small golden wings, almost imperceptible, sprouting from their backs. "We all have the potential to fly," explained Emily. "Sometimes we just need someone to remind us of that." Sophie looked fascinated at the painting, pointing out details, recognizing herself in the image. Nathan remained silent, visibly moved. "It's perfect, Emily," he finally said. "It captures exactly what happened that day. Something greater than all of us was in motion." Emily nodded, understanding. There was something almost mystical in the way their lives had intertwined from that casual encounter, as if the universe had conspired to put them in the same place, at the same moment. "Now I have a surprise for you," said Nathan, signaling to Sophie. The girl opened her pencil case and took out a carefully folded sheet. She handed it to Emily with a shy smile. "We made it together," explained Sophie. Emily unfolded the paper and found a drawing made by several hands. In the center, she recognized Sophie's childish stroke, the 3 stick figures, as always. Around it, however, was a more sophisticated work, which Emily immediately identified as being by Nathan, an artistic framing that transformed the simple drawing into something almost architectural. "I didn't know you drew," commented Emily, surprised. Nathan smiled. "There are many things we still don't know about each other." The phrase hung in the air, laden with future possibilities that neither was ready to name, but that both felt growing each day. The moment was interrupted by Heather, who entered the room hurriedly. "Emily, it's time for the speech. Everyone is waiting." Emily felt her heart race. She hadn't planned to give a speech, but Heather had insisted it would be important to formally thank those present, especially the representatives of the schools and the institute. In the main hall, a small stage had been set up next to the central installation. When Emily went up, accompanied by Nathan and Sophie, the gallery fell silent. Dozens of faces turned to her, expectant. "Good evening, everyone," Emily began, her voice initially hesitant, gaining strength gradually. "I deeply appreciate the presence of each of you on this special night for me. As she spoke about her journey, from the days when she left anonymous drawings at the café to the work in schools, Emily noticed something extraordinary happening. Sophie, at her side, had opened the pencil case and was beginning to draw on a small blank canvas that Heather had discreetly placed there. The audience watched, fascinated, as the girl drew with absolute concentration. Emily continued her speech, but now shared the attention with Sophie, whose colourful strokes quickly took shape. When Emily finished speaking, Sophie raised her drawing. It was a large, colourful butterfly, with open wings that seemed ready to leave the paper. Beside it, Sophie had drawn a smaller butterfly with the same colours but more delicate strokes. "For you, Aunt Emily," said the girl, handing over the drawing. "The big one is you and the small one is me. You taught me to fly." An emotional murmur ran through the gallery. Emily felt tears welling up as she hugged Sophie, lifting her in her arms so everyone could see the little artist. From across the room, she saw Ryan applauding enthusiastically. Even Barbara Mitchell seemed touched, disguising with a handkerchief what might have been a stubborn tear. In that moment, Emily understood that she had found her true place. It wasn't just in the applause or favourable reviews, nor even in the impressive sales that Heather had discreetly informed her were already happening. Her place was there, in the middle of that web of connections, teaching, learning, sharing, creating bridges through art. Months later, when the Connections exhibition had already travelled to 3 other American cities and the school project was consolidated, Emily returned to Cornerstone Arts. She sat at the same table where it all began and ordered a coffee. The wall where Ryan used to display her drawings now exhibited a framed photograph. Emily, Nathan and Sophie, on the opening night, the 3 generations of artists united by chance and purpose. While savouring her coffee, Emily observed the movement of the place. She noticed a young woman sitting alone in a corner, drawing concentratedly in a worn notebook. Beside her, a cup of coffee cooled, forgotten. The scene was so familiar, it almost hurt. Emily took her own notebook, tore out a sheet, and quickly drew a small, colourful butterfly. Upon finishing, she stood up and approached the stranger. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Is there space here for another artist?" The young woman raised her gaze, surprised, and then smiled, moving her materials to make room. "Of course, there's always space for those who create." Emily sat down, placing the drawn butterfly on the table. "I'm Emily." "Anna," replied the young woman, picking up the drawing with curiosity. "Is this for me?" "It's a reminder," explained Emily, "that we never know where our wings might take us." Anna looked at the drawing, then at Emily, a glimmer of recognition appearing in her eyes. "You're that artist, aren't you? The one from the school workshops?" Emily smiled. "I'm just someone who learned that small gestures can change everything, and that sometimes it only takes offering a place at the table for entire stories to begin being written." Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Emily, Nathan and Sophie has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it here, clicking on the left. If you enjoyed this narrative about human connections and the transformative power of art, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the beauty of unexpected encounters. Don't miss our upcoming content and share with us in the comments what small gesture changed the trajectory of your life. We're eager to know your stories.